November 2, 1950. The Chinese have surrounded the 3rd Battalion, 8th Cavalry Regiment near Unsan. The situation is desperate. Men are dying. The wounded can't walk. And the order comes, withdraw, every man for himself. Leave the wounded, there's no way to carry them and survive. Captain Emil Kapaun, the battalion chaplain, hears this order and ignores it. He's not leaving anyone. He moves among the wounded, dragging men to covered positions, giving them water, praying with them. Bullets are snapping past. Chinese soldiers are everywhere. Other soldiers are running. And this Catholic priest from Kansas is calmly walking through the chaos, refusing to abandon the men who can't save themselves. This is how Father Kapaun fought the Korean War. Not with weapons, he carried no rifle, but with a courage that went beyond anything the men around him had ever seen. And what he did in the months after his capture, in Chinese POW camps where death was everywhere, would earn him the Medal of Honor 63 years later and put him on the path to Catholic sainthood. Let me tell you about the most remarkable chaplain in American military history, and why the men who survived those POW camps because of him spent the rest of their lives telling anyone who would listen. Father Kapaun was a saint. Emil Kapaun was born in 1816 in Pilsen, Kansas. Small farming town, Czech Catholic community. He grew up working on his family's farm, went to seminary, became a priest, quiet, unassuming. The kind of priest who knew everyone in his parish, visited the sick, never asked for recognition. In 1944, he joined the army as a chaplain, served in Burma during World War II, came home, could have stayed in Kansas for the rest of his life. Instead, when the Korean War started, he volunteered to go. He was assigned to the 3rd Battalion, 8th Cavalry Regiment. The soldiers loved him immediately. He wasn't the kind of chaplain who stayed at headquarters and held Sunday services. He went out on patrols, lived in the foxholes with the men, smoked their cigarettes, shared their rations, listened to their problems. And when they went into combat, he went with them. July of 1950. The battalion is in heavy fighting near Yechon. A soldier is wounded in an exposed position. Machine gun fire is tearing up the area. Nobody can reach him, it's suicide. Father Kapaun runs out into the fire, drags the soldier to cover and stays with him until medics arrive. He's awarded the Bronze Star for valor. When they pin it on him, he seems embarrassed. "I'm a priest," he says. "That's my job." By November 1950, the battalion is in North Korea, part of the push toward the Yalu River. Then the Chinese enter the war. The battalion gets hit hard near Unsan. They're surrounded, taking casualties, running low on ammunition. The situation deteriorates into chaos. On November 2nd, the order comes to break out, every man for himself. The wounded who can't walk will have to be left behind. That's the reality of the situation. Save yourself or die. Father Kapaun refuses. He moves through the battlefield, finding wounded men, dragging them to safer positions. He's not armed. He's wearing his chaplain's cross, and he's completely exposed to enemy fire. Other soldiers watch him and can't believe what they're seeing. One of them, Sergeant Herbert Miller, later said, "He was the bravest man I ever saw. He didn't care about the bullets. He only cared about the wounded." Eventually, Father Kapaun is captured along with the wounded men he refused to abandon. He's now a prisoner of war. And this is where his real test begins. Because what Father Kapaun does in the next 5 months, in Chinese POW camps where conditions are horrific and death is commonplace, is what makes him legendary. The Chinese forced the captured Americans on a death march, over 100 miles, in November in North Korea. The prisoners are already wounded, exhausted, starving. Many can't walk. The Chinese don't care, keep moving or die. Men start dropping. The Chinese leave them where they fall. Some are shot, others freeze to death. Father Kapaun carries men, literally. When a soldier collapses, Father Kapaun picks him up and carries him. When he can't carry anymore, he gets other prisoners to help. He moves up and down the column, encouraging men, helping the weak, praying with the dying. He refuses to let anyone give up. "We're going to make it," he tells them. "God hasn't brought us this far to abandon us now." Private William Funches was on that death march. He later testified that he would have died without Father Kapaun. He'd been wounded in the leg, couldn't walk. Father Kapaun carried him for miles. When Funches said, "Leave me, save yourself," Father Kapaun refused. "I'm not leaving you. We're going to get through this together." And they did. Funches survived. He spent the rest of his life telling people that Father Kapaun saved him. They reached the POW camp. It's worse than anything these men could have imagined. Brutal cold, no heat, minimal food, a handful of millet or cracked corn once a day, no medical care. Men are dying from wounds, from disease, from starvation. Dysentery is rampant, so is pneumonia. The Chinese guards are indifferent to suffering. You live or you die. They don't care. Father Kapaun immediately starts organizing the prisoners. He sets up a routine: morning prayers, evening prayers. He moves through the camp, visiting the sick, talking to men who are losing hope. And he does something that the other prisoners can't believe: he steals. The Chinese have a supply hut with extra food and medicine. It's guarded but not carefully. Father Kapaun sneaks in at night and takes what he can: food, bandages, medicine. He distributes it to the sickest prisoners. When he's caught, the guards beat him. They threaten to kill him. He stops for a few days, then goes right back to stealing. Because men are dying and he's not going to let them die if he can save them. One prisoner, Mike Dow, was dying from dysentery. He'd given up, stopped eating, waiting to die. Father Kapaun came to him every day, brought him extra food stolen from the guards' supplies, forced him to eat, prayed with him, told him stories to keep his mind occupied. Dow survived. He later said, "Father Kapaun wouldn't let me die. I wanted to, but he wouldn't allow it." Father Kapaun builds a stove. The prisoners have nothing to cook with, no way to heat water. He scrounges metal from around the camp, builds a makeshift stove, and suddenly prisoners can boil water to make it safe to drink, can heat their meager rations. This one action saves dozens of lives by reducing disease. The Chinese guards are angry. He didn't ask permission. He doesn't care. Men need heat and clean water. That's all that matters. Easter Sunday, 1951. The camp is miserable. Men are dying every day. Morale is gone. Father Kapaun organizes an Easter service. He has no Bible. The Chinese took it. He has no vestments, no altar, but he recites the Easter Mass from memory. Dozens of prisoners attend: Catholics, Protestants, Jews, men who'd never been religious before. They sing hymns. They pray. For a few minutes, they're not starving prisoners in a Chinese camp. They're human beings with dignity and hope. The guards try to stop the service. Father Kapaun ignores them. They threaten him. He keeps praying. Finally, they let it continue. After the service, men say they felt something change. Not in the camp was still hell, but in themselves. They had hope again. Father Kapaun gave them that. By April 1951, Father Kapaun is sick. He's been giving away his food to others. He's been stealing, carrying the sick, working constantly to keep men alive. His body can't sustain it anymore. He develops pneumonia and a blood clot in his leg. He's in bad shape. The Chinese guards see this and make their move. They have a place they call the hospital. It's not a hospital. It's where they send prisoners to die. No medicine, no food, just a room where the dying are left alone. When Father Kapaun gets seriously ill, the guards say he has to go to the hospital. The other prisoners know what this means. He's being sent there to die. Father Kapaun knows it too, but he doesn't resist. Other prisoners try to hide him, try to keep the guards from taking him. He tells them not to. "I'm ready," he says. "Take care of each other, keep faith, I'll pray for you." They carry him out of the camp on May 23, 1951. The prisoners watch him go, knowing they'll never see him again. Father Kapaun dies in the hospital a few days later, alone, in pain, at age 35. The Chinese don't record his death officially for weeks. His body is never recovered. But the men he saved never forgot him. When they were finally released in 1953, they came home and immediately started telling Father Kapaun's story. They testified to military investigators. They wrote letters. They gave interviews. They all said the same thing: Father Kapaun was a saint. He saved our lives. He died for us. But getting official recognition took decades. The Army lost some of the paperwork about his actions. The Medal of Honor requires extensive documentation. Witnesses had to be tracked down years later. And there was institutional inertia. He was a chaplain, and chaplains didn't usually get the Medal of Honor for non-combat actions. But the survivors wouldn't give up. They formed an organization dedicated to getting Father Kapaun recognized. They lobbied Congress. They gathered testimonies. And finally, in 2013, 62 years after his death, President Barack Obama awarded Father Kapaun the Medal of Honor posthumously. His nephew accepted it on his behalf. In the audience were men Father Kapaun had saved, old men now in their 80s, some in wheelchairs. They stood when his name was called. Some were crying. They'd waited their entire adult lives for this moment. The citation reads, Chaplain Kapaun's extraordinary heroism and selflessness above and beyond the call of duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of military service and reflect great credit upon himself, the 3rd Battalion, 8th Cavalry Regiment, and the United States Army. But that official language doesn't capture what he really did. Let me tell you what the survivors said. They said Father Kapaun kept them human when everything around them was trying to reduce them to animals. They said he gave them hope when hope was impossible. They said he showed them that goodness could exist even in hell. And they said he saved their lives, not just physically but spiritually. Mike Dow, the man who Father Kapaun wouldn't let die from dysentery, lived until 2012. He spent decades telling Father Kapaun's story. He testified at the Medal of Honor hearings. He worked with the Catholic Church on the canonization process. In an interview shortly before his death, he said, I've spent my whole life trying to live up to what Father Kapaun did for me. I've never come close, but I try, because he gave me a life I shouldn't have had. The least I can do is make it mean something. The Catholic Church is investigating Father Kapaun for canonization, official sainthood. The process is ongoing. There are thousands of pages of testimony from the men he saved and their families. Medical experts have examined reports of his actions. The Vatican is reviewing everything. Whether he's officially declared a saint or not, the men who knew him have no doubt. They called him a saint in 1951. They still do. Father Kapaun's story matters because it shows what's possible even in the worst circumstances. POW camps in Korea were places where survival meant becoming selfish, hoarding resources, looking out only for yourself. Most prisoners did that, not because they were bad people, but because that's what survival required. Father Kapaun did the opposite. He gave away his food. He risked his life stealing for others. He carried men who couldn't walk. He refused to give up on anyone. And by doing that, he saved lives. Not in a metaphorical sense. Actual lives. Men who would have died survived because Father Kapaun wouldn't let them die. Estimates suggest he directly saved at least a dozen men through his actions, carrying them on the death march, stealing food for them, nursing them when they were sick. And he indirectly saved dozens more by maintaining morale, organizing the prisoners, creating hope in a hopeless place. But it cost him his life. He gave everything, his food, his strength, his health, and finally his life. He knew what he was doing. Men told him to stop to save himself. He wouldn't. He was a priest. His job was to care for others, even if it killed him, and it did. There's a photo of Father Kapaun that's famous now. It shows him in combat gear, wearing his priest's cross, smoking a pipe, looking tired but determined. That's the image that defined him, not standing at an altar in a church back in Kansas, but in the field with the men, sharing their danger, living their reality. That's who he was. The survivors are mostly gone now. The last men Father Kapaun saved are in their 90s or have passed away, but they made sure his story was told. They testified, wrote books, gave interviews. They made sure that Father Kapaun's Medal of Honor happened. They made sure the canonization process started. They made sure that future generations would know about the priest from Kansas who died in a Chinese POW camp, saving men nobody else cared about. Father Emil Kapaun, born 1816, died May 1951, age 35, Medal of Honor recipient, candidate for sainthood, and according to the men he saved, the bravest, most selfless human being they ever knew. He didn't carry a weapon. He couldn't call in artillery or airstrikes. He couldn't shoot enemy soldiers or destroy tanks. All he had was faith, compassion, and an absolute refusal to give up on anyone. And with that, he saved lives and gave hope in a place where both were supposed to be impossible. That's Father Kapaun. That's what one person can do when they decide that other people's lives matter more than their own. That's heroism in its purest form. And that's a story that should never be forgotten.